Thanks everyone for taking the time out of your day to join us.
Not on.
Can you hear me now? No? Can you hear me now? Okay. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us today. We'll try to keep the introduction short. We have a close timeline. We've structured 3 10-minute presentations on the topic of the power plant. And we're also going to have a question and answer session, and we'll talk about the format. First, I'd like to thank Tom and his lovely wife Anita for being so gracious as to allow us to use the facility here and organize it. And appreciate everyone's time coming out to hear various sides of the issue. That's what this is about, sharing information amongst the community. Our approach, Sika's approach, is to be a fact-based collaborative component in the community to kind of affect change and help get the community shaped the way we would like the community shaped as residents of the community. I'm sure not everyone's going to agree on every issue, but our feeling is we want to get the facts, have everybody hear it, make their own minds up, and participate in the process as much as we can. So thank you for taking the time out of your weekend. We really appreciate the speakers taking their time to prepare from NRG to come here. Carmen Ramirez, Mayor Pro Tem, Werner and Audrey Keller for representing Sika. The way this is going to flow is, as we said, we're going to have 3 10-minute presentations. Tom is going to do the moderation. If as the presentations are going on, you have questions, we'd appreciate it if you put them on an index card. What we're going to do is we're going to consolidate like questions together so we don't do a lot of repetitious questions. And Tom back here in the red shirt has index cards.
Anybody?
Tom's going to be the guy to keep everybody in tow so that we can cover a lot of ground quickly and try to get a lot of questions on the table. Just in the way of futures, we're looking to do a forum like this every 4 to 6 weeks to share information about items going on in the harbor and the community that might be of interest, and we'll advertise them on our websites, the social media sites, and via email as we generally do. Today we have also KADY here, TV. They're going to have it on their site, and again, if you know friends or neighbors, you want to point them to the video, please do. We'll also post this on our website. That's ciharbor.org. So without further ado, so we can get this agenda underway, I'll introduce Tom to go over the ground rules quickly.
Good morning, everybody. And yes, we do thank you for taking your valuable time on a wonderful day. It's slightly drizzly, but it's always beautiful up here. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone standing in the back, if you'd like, there's still 1, 2, 3, 4 seats up this way. If you'd like to have a seat up here, they are individual seats, so if you're with someone, I'm sorry. We also have some chairs in the back that are stacked, and at this point, if you'd like to scatter them around, you may. We were trying to wait to do that till we made sure we needed them outright. Anyhow, a couple of ground rules before we get going here. The restrooms are in the back corner there. Please help yourself at any time that you need to. I hate seeing squirming people sitting in the chair. Once we get going, it should be no longer than about an hour, so it should be a fairly comfortable pace and tempo, and just enough time that you'll be ready to stand up when we're done. There's coffee and water available for everyone as well. And yes?
Can you get your full name?
I will, thank you. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, who are you?
My name, who am I? I often ask myself that same question. My name is Tom Peterson, and I'm a homeowner here in the harbor and also a business owner here in the harbor. My wife and I are founding members of TYC, the yacht club that you're in right now. And we are also involved with Valkyrie Yacht Sales and Valkyrie Yachts. And I also co-own an insurance underwriting company in Santa Clarita. So a little bit of everything in the area, but we're definitely very close to the community. And thank you for asking. Let's see, okay, so here's the general format of what we're going to do. Remember, today is about fact collecting and information gathering. So people have come in here, some of you have a specific opinion, some of you have no idea, some of you are just looking for general information about what's going on with the power plant at the beach. Our goal today is to provide you, arm you with valuable information. We're not here to sway you. SECA is formed to basically be a fact-based organization. We're here to say, here are the facts, here's the information, you decide what you need to do. And so for that matter, it's a very worthy and noble organization. We have 3 representatives that's going to do a 10-minute presentation each. NRG will be here to talk about the plant itself. The City of Oxnard, represented by Carmen Ramirez, Mayor Pro Tem, and where is she? Right there, I'm sorry, I looked right over.
I can clarify, I'm speaking for myself, for the entire city.
Oh, very good, okay. All right, if you didn't hear that, Carmen Ramirez is speaking on her behalf of herself, not necessarily for the City of Oxnard.
City council.
Not for City Council, okay. And then the third group that will speak for 10 minutes is from SECA itself. So again, we would appreciate proper decorum. Again, it's fact-based gathering. It's your chance to ask questions. We have sent around cards for people to ask questions. Now, if I can explain something here, we have for the last few weeks been receiving questions by email, so we've generated some already. If we look at your question and it's close to or similar to one that we've already got, please understand that when we ask that question and it's like in the range of what you're after, that's it, okay? I mean, we can't ask every single one of them, but we're going to ask as many as we can in the time allotted in the general areas that each one has been, that seem to be strong interest. Also, when we're finished, because we know we're not going to be able to get through all the questions, we are going to do our best to compile the answers that didn't get answered and get them back to you. And I think they'll be put up on the website. Is that right? And we'll mention this again at the end just for a reminder. So in other words, we will do our best to answer every question, but it might not necessarily be today. Okay, fair game? All right, good. Let's see, is there anything else I missed? Questions, thank you. Index cards. Okay. Oh, yes. Very important. As I said at the beginning, we know people have their strong opinions on different sides of different issues, and we understand that, we acknowledge that, there's nothing wrong with that. But today's purpose is information gathering, not opinions on things. So when you submit a question, we may rewrite it, especially if it starts out with a lot of commentary. Doesn't matter what it's the question that we're after, okay? So again, we're not trying to be disrespectful of your opinion. Our goal is to give everyone information, okay? And I think that was it. So any questions before we get started? I promise we will be done in 1 hour once we start officially. Diane, you mentioned, my apologies, yes. Forgot one more matter of business here. We do have some very important people in the audience today that I would like to introduce. The first one, Supervisor John Zaragoza, would you stand up, please? John represents the harbor area here and is a good friend to a lot of us. So again, thank you for being here. And with him is Bill Gallagher, who works in his office. And then we also have Dr. Chris Williamson, who's principal planner at the City of Oxnard over here. Now, honestly, you're all VIP, so I acknowledge that. But did I miss anyone else from the city, the county, the state, Anyone else? No. All right. Without further ado then, we would like to have our first presentation, and that will be NRG. And I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Tony Cordero and Ms. Dawn Glider. Yeah, thank you. Hold on. Don't cross the screen.
Stand there, all stand here. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tony Cordero, as Tom said. Tony Cordero, I'm the Director of External Affairs for NRG here in California. And what that means is that throughout the state where we have power plants, I handle our local government relations, our community affairs, and activities that give us visibility and participation in the communities where we live and work. So 54 years ago, I was born here in Oxnard, back when Camarillo Airport was Oxnard Air Force Base, and spent the first couple years of my life here. So I have some interest in what we are doing as a company and what the community has to say. Dawn is here today to provide you with the details and the facts of the Puente Power Project and the replacement of the Mandalay station here. She'll give you an explanation in as much possibility as can be done in 10 minutes, how we find ourselves where we are now, what brought us to this point, and what the future looks like for the power plants and how we see energy in the future. It's an issue that is very important to NRG, our company. And what I will say before turning it over to Dawn is that we have, for the last couple of years, engaged the community in conversations, big and small. This is one of the bigger ones. We've had some small ones recently. We are willing to do more. So in the 10 minutes that Dawn can provide information to you, there will probably be many, many questions that you still have. The invitation to you is very simple. Contact us. We will be happy to arrange tours of the site, explanations to you in communities, in your homes, places of business, wherever it may be. We will come to you to share the information and the facts about the Puente Power Project. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dawn Glider. She can introduce herself and then get into the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Tony. So my name is Dawn Glider, and I'm the Director of Sustainable Development for NRG. What that means is that I focus on projects that are needed today to realize a less impactful energy future for the Western United States. So today, in 10 minutes, I'm going to try and cover 3 things for you. First, I'm going to try and talk about why there's a need for a critical energy infrastructure replacement project in this area. Second, I'm going to talk about the specifics and some details around the Puente Power Project, which has been chosen to meet that need. And then third, I'm going to go quickly over the way of this project will be permitted and upcoming milestones and how you all can participate. So if we can move to the next slide, we'll just go ahead and jump right in. So this is a graphic representation of what's called the electrical grid in this area. That's the physical poles and wires that deliver your electricity. And I'm showing you this because this is kind of where this need all started. I pulled this directly from Edison's. Now, to be clear, NRG is an independent power producer. So we sell power to Edison, who sells it to you. We don't own the transmission grids, but we just own the electrical generating station. And this is a representation directly from Edison's Public Utilities Commission filing that's active right now, where they are seeking to ask the Public Utilities Commission if the contract that they executed with NRG for the Puente Power Project met the need of the area for up to 290 megawatts. Now, why do they say that there needs to be 290 megawatts in this area? It's because, as you can see, there's a little box here on the right where it says loss of Moore Park Par D. There are only 3 lines that coming into this general area, and so that's why they call this the Ventura Moore Park sub-area. They've designated it a local reliability area. And with the exception of the Mandalay and Ormond station, there is no generation on this side of those 3 lines, which are particularly susceptible to natural disasters, things like wildfires or earthquakes. So the California Independent Systems Operator studied this and said, okay, this may happen, we need some additional generation, we need local generation in this area. Now you might be thinking to yourself at this point, but wait a minute, we have 2 power plants already. We have the Ormond Beach generating station and we have the Mandalay generating station. So why do we need another one? Well, let's move to the next slide. And we can talk about how the Public Utilities Commission's job really is to kind of look out for your best interest in the future. Obviously, I don't work for them, but I'm very much, my work depends on their work. So what they did is they looked at some of these environmental regulations that we have coming up for execution in the future and said, you know what, there is a potential that these generating stations would retire. So there's two particular pieces of environmental legislation that we look at when we consider the future of the electrical generating station of the electrical grid in this area. The first is what they call the once-through cooling policy. And this dictates that to protect aquatic species by 2020, both the Mandalay generating station and the Ormond generating station need to reduce the flow of ocean water that they're using by 95%. Okay, so these are pretty old generating stations. And this means that as they reduce this flow, it may just be a better economic decision to retire them. So all of the dots on this map here are subject to once-through cooling. And when the public utilities considered this back in a formal public proceeding where it was litigated in 2013, they said these facilities may retire, and the independent systems grid operator recommended that actually 430 megawatts of generation be acquired for this area. But through the litigation process, the Utilities Commission authorized only 290. So then the Utilities Commission said, okay, Edison, go procure those 290 megawatts. And they opened up a competitive process, what they call an all-source RFO, or request for offers. And they said to developers like myself and NRG, please go and look for generation and ways to meet this need. Okay, and the Puente Power Project was the resulting project that they confirmed to be the best overall need. Okay, so that's how we got here today. Now let's talk about what the Puente Power Project actually is. All right, so there is at the Mandalay generating station takes currently, so the Puente Power Project in its most simplest terms is a replacement of Mandalay units 1 and 2. These are two steam boiler units that take about 12 to 18 hours to start. So the Puente Power Project is really a better way to do this. It's state of the art and it starts in about 10 minutes. We can go to the next slide. The Puente Project will be located in an existing industrial area, and it's surrounded by industry that will continue beyond the 30-year design life of the Puente Project. Now this is a little hard to see, but I'll just try and point out a few things on this map here. And as Tony said, this is really hard to do in 10 minutes. So the existing yellow line is the boundaries of NRG's facility. The new project will be located completely within those boundaries and will replace units 1 and 2 and will be located kind of in the northwestern site corner. And you can see there's the Center Point Canal, there's some oil processing and drilling. So that's the general location of where the project is going to be located. Now, I mentioned that the power is generated in a different way, so we can go to the next slide.
And 2-minute warning.
Thank you. So the power is generated in a different way, which means that it has different impacts and significantly less impacts. So let's talk about air for a second. So I said the old facility takes 12 to 18 hours to start, the new one starts in 10. That means that you don't have 12 to 18 hours of emissions and also more stringent air emission standards. This results in an over 500 ton per year reduction in carbon monoxide and a 20-ton reduction in particulate matter and dust. So all of this is within our state energy commission's license, and I'd love to kind of walk you all through that, but these are the facts of what the project actually is. It's a replacement project with less impacts. Next slide. And that also includes water. So the existing unit boils basically a big boil drum to generate electricity. It uses a lot of water to do that, right? Because you're actually, the steam is what's going to be, is turning a generator to generate the electricity. The new unit just does this right off of a combustion turbine. And so the net result in that is about 82% reduction in use of existing city potable water. And because you're using a lot less water, a lot is coming out the other side, so it's a 99% reduction in discharge. So it really is a less carbon intensive, less water intensive process of generating power. Like I said, it's a replacement project with less impacts for the community. You can go to the next slide. So what's it going to look like? Because the demolition of units 1 and 2 goes beyond our legal obligation, this is the visual, and this is the view from Mandalay 5th and Harbor. 5th and Harbor, this is where the nearest residential access to the beach is, and this is what we consider to be kind of the worst case visual of what people would see of the project. But we actually share the vision.
Yeah, your time's up, but if you want to finish the thought.
Sure, absolutely. So we share the vision that we would like to reclaim the coast as well. And so if you just go to the next slide, NRG is willing to demolish units 1 and 2 and use the revenue from this project in a community benefits agreement to ensure that that has a visual improvement if that's what the community would like to see. So in summary, I'll just say generation is needed in this area. NRG competed in a competitive process where it was chosen among all types of generation to be the best overall need to meet this, the best project to meet the need, and it's a critical infrastructure replacement project that will reduce the impacts of the existing power generating stations that you have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. We're not able to go back at the moment because we have to, these will all be available online as soon as we're finished. So, Dawn, thank you very much. Okay, at this point, I'd like to call up Carmen Ramirez.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Oxnard. I was appointed by Mayor Flynn when he was re-elected last year, and he appointed me 2 years ago. I like to say I am speaking here on behalf of myself. You do know that our city unanimously, all 5 council members, has voted twice for a moratorium on any new or expanded power plants on the Oxnard coast. And that includes the proposal you just heard from very nice people from NRG. I am here to tell you more about my view. I don't know that every council member subscribes to it, but I want to tell you what the city's doing and what the process is doing. As you saw, this power currently, I want to blow you out here, is for the region. It is not necessarily just for Oxnard. It supplies peaker power. Peaker power is when it gets hot elsewhere or there's more energy demand elsewhere. It is not for Oxnard exclusively. Certainly we would share in it. But what hasn't been shared is the burden of power plants for the region for the last 50 years. Name one power plant on any other coast in Ventura County. You can't. We actually have 3 power plants. We have Ormond, which has 2 stacks. We have the Edison peaker at McGrath peaker, right next to Mandalay, and we have the Mandalay plant with 1 stack. What is being proposed is an additional stack. I do have a power plant, PowerPoint, which will show you some of the graphics. This was prepared by Dr. Williamson, who's here somewhere. Where are you? There you are. So I appreciate that he let me use that. It's not working? Oh, it is. It says Youth Commission. Yes, because this was presented to the Youth Commission the other day. It doesn't say NRG, so it's the first 6 slides. I just want to show you a couple things. But let's talk a little bit about the process. NRG, you should know, is the largest power generating company in the United States. They're not like a Halico. They're not going to go bankrupt. They're very strong and effective throughout the country. They are doing a lot of renewables. They are doing a lot of home stuff, but not in Oxnard. So this is one of my questions that I would like you to ask. Why not Oxnard? Why are we continuing to be stuck with the old fossil fuel model. It's changing everywhere, very rapidly. But if this goes through, I can be stuck with really an old technology. It might be state of the art today, but it's not state of the art tomorrow. Let's go ahead. The plant, I wanna say the design life is 30 years. So we'll be there probably beyond my lifetime, and some of you maybe, except for our younger people. But keep on going to the next slide. I want you to see it. This is where it is. Just right here, almost you can see it. When I fly into Burbank, I know where Oxnard is because we have NRG's 2 coastal plants bookmarking our coast. I can see it from Burbank, and you can see it from Ventura City Hall. You can see it from everywhere. Keep going to the next one. As you can see, the project site for the new plant, or the new power site, is just as close to the water as the old ones. Keep going. And that's where it is. And you do see some sand dunes in front. And the next one will show a little different visual than you just saw earlier, what it looks like. The other the existing stack, I believe, is over 200 feet, and this is 188 feet. Looks pretty similar. So, why is the city engaging in this process of protesting? First of all, the Public Utilities Commission, just Google it, see what's been going on there. It has nothing to do with San Onofre. It has to do with the decommissioning of all of the once-through cooling plants on the California coast. There's 19 of them. They have to be shut down. They have to be retooled or totally put out of commission. NRG, which previously was GenOn, previously Reliant, previously Edison, has told the Public Utilities Commission and the Water Board it cannot be retooled. It has to be replaced. And that is what the City of Oxnard has said, officially by resolution, by ordinance. No more power plants on our beach. It's not that we don't want power, we need power. Where are we going to put our power plants? If you could show the next slide. We are engaged in a process with the Public Utilities Commission to protest the placement of an additional power plant on our coast, because the first of all, yes, Oxnard's had the burden for more than 50 years. We already have a Superfund site down the road on Halico. Oxnard's been stuck with a lot of ugly industrial polluting, perhaps necessary, but why always Oxnard? That's a question I've been asking for a long time. But the most important reason, Public Utilities Commission is supposed to consider reliability. This is where reliability is challenged. The coastline, as you can see, is rising. Sea level rise. There's some people out there who don't believe it. Get with the program. It's coming. The United States Navy, Department of Defense consider it a threat to national security. It threatens our ports, our airports, all critical infrastructure. I heard Ms. Glider say this is a critical infrastructure, electricity. Why put it where sea level rise is going to flood it? Our first responders, we have some of those great people in the audience today, we'll have to go there and rescue people if it gets flooded. We already know that when it rains, and we're expecting El Nino, thank you, we're going to get some rain, it looks like. We already see flooding. It crosses Harbor Boulevard, and certainly the plant is at risk. Why put it there? California Coastal Commission has issued guidelines for sea level rise. And can you tell me how much time I have? Okay. What our city has said is the natural disaster potential dangers to the critical infrastructure, including an earthquake. We just found out about a new fault that runs from Goleta to Santa Monica, comes right through the coastline, could potentially cause an earthquake, a landslide, a tsunami that would swamp our critical source of electricity. Why put it there? We know sea level rise is coming. All California coastal cities must plan for it. It's a state mandate. We have to have our critical infrastructure, and this may mean our housing, our hospitals, our airports, our water treatment facilities moved off the coast. Why do this? It's crazy. It's not a good business decision. I've been trying to tell the nice people we go forward. What this does show is we have sand dunes in front, which can be wiped out by the surf, and we are dependent on the sand dunes. Our scientists have said the city has hired expert witnesses who've given testimony, which is state of the art. It shows coastal flooding here and inundation. California Coastal Commission has said we cannot continue to put critical infrastructure that will require new protection from sea level rise, storm surges, or coastal erosion unless there is a compelling need. There's no compelling need for this. I want to say a lot of times I hear from people who say jobs, we need jobs. We do need jobs, but do we want to give up our coast for 17 permanent jobs out there? That's what their own documents say. There will be a power plant somewhere. We are asking that Edison go back to the drawing board. Let's get us some more renewables, which we hear about. Just look at NRG's website and talk about all their sustainability. Again, the question, why not in Oxnard? Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's get a good decision. And you are able to participate. You can come to the public utilities public participation hearing July 15th at the Performing Arts Center, 6 o'clock. July 15th. You'll all be getting informed about that. So, am I there? I'm there. All right, thank you all. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Awesome, thank you. Next, we would like to call up Werner and Audrey Keller, but I understand Audrey has a case of laryngitis, and as such, it's going to be Werner Keller, but both are members of SECA and have some interesting information to share.
Do I need a microphone? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I'm talking both of them. Well, you own the place. Good morning, and fantastic event so far. Thanks for to NRG and to Mayor Pro Tem. I and Mike and Tom and a bunch of others in the back, all members of SECA, sorry. We organized about a year and a half ago, mostly with harbor-related issues, but we're basically interested in anything that is critical to the sorry.
Can't see
You still-
or hear him.
Oh, you can't hear me?
They
Okay.
won't even move, so can you
Oh,
just-
I need to hold on to the tape. That's, and I want you to be able to see the slides. So, all right. Okay, thank you. I also want to thank the folks from NRG, Don and Tony, because they invited me and a couple of our colleagues over to look at the plant recently. Great tour. A very impressive facility. It's sort of like Central Station. It's just, it's huge. Amazing that it's 50 years old. So that's impressive. What's less impressive is, as Carmen said, that it's sitting right on our beach. Oops. I meant to show this. This is the Southern California Edison distribution grid. Another version of the slide that Dawn had up. You can see where the red arrow is above the Anacapa there. That's us. That's where we're sitting. And that is the cul-de-sac in the distribution system. And you can see why the Public Utilities Commission would say, wow, this is pretty important. We need some generation. We may have other generation facilities in the area, but certainly you've got this tail going up towards Santa Barbara, Goleta, and Gaviota there, and that's part of this system. So they said, well, we need some additional power. We don't need primary power, we need supplemental power. We need peaker power. And everybody connected with this project, be the first to say that it may not operate hardly at all, because you don't know if things are normal, if there's no special loads due to all the things that Dawn mentioned, then my golly, we we don't need that power, and we might not be operating that plant. So as Carmen said so well, why put it on our shore? The other assumptions in this thing also matter very much, because what we're looking at here is really is really a modeling process that comes down from the state of California, where they say, well, we're forecasting the future, we're looking at all the things that can happen. We look at 2 standard deviations from the mean in both directions, say, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? And they solve for how much generation they need. Underneath it all, I think there's 2 assumptions. One is that California will need more power in the future. And the other assumption is that alternatives are small and growing, but not very much. And we say maybe not to both of those. To show you how flawed a lot of this forecasting process is, this is a California Energy Commission forecast. I think it was first done in 2007, and then it was done again in 2009 after the recession hit. And you can see that basically what all these forecasters do for hundreds of thousands of dollars is to assume that the future will be pretty much like the past. In other words, that energy consumption is going to continue to rise. But what's happened is it's something different. Energy consumption has not gone up anymore. It's flattened out. That's the lower line on this chart. That blue line shows actual energy consumption. I think technically it's missing imports from other states, but it's a real number. On the other hand, on that same spreadsheet is energy generating capability, which is the red line. And you can see that that's gone up every year for the last 15 years. So what we have is a redundancy gap. This is statewide. This is not here on the coast. This is just the system. The system is in great shape because we're actually starting to put LEDs into our light fixtures, and we're starting to use iPads instead of PCs. We're starting to be energy smart. And on the other side, we have alternatives really starting to get traction. You give people enough incentives for a long enough period of time, and by golly, they'll respond after a while. We had a solar installation go into our neighborhood just this last week. So that's the growth of alternative energy capability in California over the last 15 years. It's still a small number. Make sure that alternatives are generally not very powerful at generating electricity, nothing like natural gas. So the question is, do we need a plant? Probably we need something. Do we need a plant on the beach? Probably, I would argue that's a much more difficult decision because as we'll see in a second, the plant is right at the intersection of a whole bunch of important stuff. First of all, it is vulnerable from tsunamis and earthquakes. But the other thing is this whole trail possibility coming up the beach or coming along the Edison Canal, which I'll get into in a second, Audrey's presentation, is blocked by this site. And I understand why NRG would be pushing this site because they own it. It's the lowest cost solution. It's the best way that they can be competitive. If we say to NRG, why don't you go across the street, which we have raised our hand and suggested, underneath their answer is, of course, the fact that it costs us more money to do that. So I had 20 year, I thought it was a 20-year industrial commitment. It's actually 30 years, I just learned. So, if you assume that it would take 10 years to convert that site to something that we'd all be proud of, that would really invigorate our community, and then you add and you delay that 10-year process by 30 years, then we're talking about really a 40, 50-year horizon to get the shoreline back to what it needs to be. This is my wife's presentation. The alternative vision would be to say, forget the details of the power. What would the appropriate use be for this beach and for this area? And she was inspired by the Trails model where you take industrial infrastructure and you convert it into walkway, bicycling, in some cases, waterway trails. So here's a propaganda shot of the Oxnard coast. That's why we're all here, right? The opportunity is to encourage, and I think the heart of the proposal is we are respectful of the fact that, and we love the fact that electricity is reliable. We all love that, right? I mean, electricity is taken for granted. We turn the lights on, it works. The PA system is powered by electricity. So it's not like we want to live without electricity, which is saying, are we willing to pay a little bit more to the quote system to have located somewhere else?
A 2-minute warning.
Thank you. I think the answer is yes. So our vision, beginning with the end in mind, would be to create a waterway trailway from Channel Islands Harbor to the plant site, revitalize and repurpose it in some way, Edison Canal. And you can just imagine kayaking up the Edison Canal and having a parking lot at the end with picnic areas, nicely landscaped, maybe a walkway, bicycle ways, and being able to do the same thing from the beach. Basically, what was it, 6.5 miles of beach from the breakwater to Ventura Harbor. Well, we'd love to be able to just walk up and down that whole beach without having to pass this site. And it's not NRG's fault that the site is there. That happened a long time ago before NRG existed. Well, huge benefits, and including some monetary ones. I'll skip, but you can get on the website. Visitors who spend money. There's a 24-mile trailway in Pennsylvania, 622,000 users a year, 8.3 million of calculated related revenue. So that's obviously a huge vision. But if we say that's where we want to go, and we don't want to have another project that sits on our beach for 30 years and then needs to be remediated and modified into something else, obviously we're going to need a lot of planning, and we're going to need a lot of help from the government. So glad we have some representatives from our local governments here, because that's where we need to go. Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to call back NRG, Carmen Ramirez, and Warner, please come up and have a seat as a panel. This will take us just a minute or two, so talk amongst yourselves quietly.
All right. The admonition for the flag.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back in session here. We have our panel set up here of NRG, Carmen Ramirez, and Warner representing Sika at the end here. what we have been doing, you've all had a chance to fill out cards with questions on it, and we've taken those questions and we had some that were already pre-sent or sent to us previously. We've tried to fit them in categories. So again, if your specific question doesn't get mentioned, I apologize, but kind of listen for the broad, say, yeah, it kind of fits in that category. And then also, as I said earlier, when we're done, our goal is to answer all questions. So if they don't get answered today, don't just walk away thinking that's the end of it. Check the website. We're going to do our best to get answers to every question that's up here. It may take us a few days or a week or two or however long we can, but quickly we can do it. But it'll be available to you. Also, when we're done today, feel free to ask questions independently after the program's over as well. We'll be here for a little while as well. The structure of what we're going to do is we're going to ask a specific question that's kind of, it seems to be geared toward a specific person. Ask and give them about a minute or two to make a response to it as best, as succinctly as they can. And then we're also, if it's appropriate, the other two groups could have a few seconds to either add to or comment on. All right, so with that being said, here's our first one. From various conversations and questions that have been raised here, we understand that NRG, this is directed at NRG, that a study of potential alternative sites to Mandalay were done or have been done or considered. Can you, A, make that study available, talk about it, what the cost difference of those, or give us a quick synopsis of what those might be? Oh, we need the microphone there.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yes, so NRG did, when Edison released their request and said that there was going to be a competitive process, NRG, like they do for all projects, looked for about 2 years for what would be the best possible project. And we considered all kinds of different projects. Now, the details, this is a competitive business, so there's proprietary things that I can't really say like what the cost difference would be, because then I would be kind of shooting myself in the future for future business and sites. But I can say that we looked significantly for over 2 years for additional sites, been in several different configurations, and that the Puente project was what was confirmed to be the best overall compromise to meet the need that was identified.
Thank you. Would those alternative sites be made available?
So through the course of the permitting of the project, they may be, yes, and that would happen at the California. I didn't really get to this part of my presentation, but as Tony said, we're happy to come and talk to anybody about all of this at any time. The California Energy Commission has the authority for permitting all power plants over 50 megawatts, and we are actively engaged in our permitting process there. And so there's public opportunities and there's a public advisor for that process. And that would be kind of the place where you can learn all kinds of different facts and where those sites would also be available.
And comments?
I'd like to just add something here. Certainly NRG is a for-profit organization, and they have to look for something that helps their bottom line, doesn't hurt it. I think that is a key thing here that I want to mention. Certainly any other site would probably require NRG to buy it, and therefore it would cost more. They don't have to do that at the current site. And what does that mean for the consumer? Theoretically, it means a cheaper, very minimally cheaper rate per kilowatt hour, but the long-term cost to the people of Oxnard and the region is quite a bit higher. So you here in Oxnard would be subsidizing potentially minimally cheaper energy for everybody else at the cost of our coastline.
Don, you mentioned that when Edison asked for solutions from the community. You were one of many bidders that offered solutions, and I forgot, it was an astounding number to hear. Over 100 people responded to Edison's request for this generating capability. So, but there's no way that we could look up who those were and what philosophically where they were, you know, how they approached, how they tried to solve the problem.
So there's that, all of that information would be in the Public Utilities Commission proceeding. Should I go like right here? Oh, okay. And so there is some information that is available on those, that number of over 113 people. Edison has also said in their testimony, because quite frankly, I don't even know who everyone is, but they've said that there was all kinds of generation bid in. So one thing that's really interesting is, you know, you say, why not renewables? NRG really knows renewables. Yes, we do. We are one of the largest renewable energy providers in the United States, but we also really know power. And we know the power grid, and we know the system, and we know how to provide reliable power. And so those alternative projects were bid into this competitive process. And the project that was confirmed to meet the need that was identified, and I think Warren makes some really good points about, you know, analysis is only good as its assumptions. But I do have a lot of confidence in people that do this for a living. The California Independent Systems Operator and the Public Utilities Commission, that they've considered kind of the consequences of having a margin of error. And given that, they, like I said, they had originally said it was 430. They only authorized 290 so that they could account for that.
Thank you. Our next question is directed to Mayor Pro Tem Carmen Ramirez. We've heard that the city is not willing to negotiate with NRG in any way. Is that true? And if so, why? And then just as a follow-up to that question, if NRG abandons the current site as it is, how would the city be able to clean up the site?
Any of you ever got a visit from code enforcement? As to the last part of that question, I know people who've gotten that visit when they've got trash in their front yard or junked cars or whatever. Do you really think that something that's a blight, abandoned, rusted, potentially toxic, couldn't be dealt with legally? I'm not going to discuss legal strategy here, but I'll just say I think the city has tools. Hopefully the company would cooperate. The first part of the question was negotiation. Certainly we've all talked to NRG, we've listened to them, we've asked questions. Negotiation means capitulation. I'm not there. I am not ready to say, okay, you can stay there. This power plant needs to be elsewhere if it's going to be reliable as a critical infrastructure, as I've now said 2 or 3 times.
Any comments from either one?
Yeah, so I would actually like to talk on the reliability issue because I didn't have time to get to that. So Ms. Mayor Pro Tem had mentioned, you know, she doesn't think it's a smart business investment, but I would say that it's NRG's business and that we have considered the evaluations of climate change, and we do think that the site is reliable, and we would not be spending hundreds of millions of dollars if we did not believe so. So we have considered the Coastal Commission's guidance. The Coastal Commission's most recent document doesn't say that you shouldn't have anything on the coast, because I don't know if any of you own homes on the coast or have other facilities that are on the coast. What it says is that you need to make sure that you pay attention in your planning for those, and that you should try and use natural protection where possible. And that's what we're doing. We have a naturally protected site that's at above 14 feet of elevation. It has over 20 to 30 foot sand dunes in front of it. And in addition to that, the beach since 1947 has accreted over 300 feet because the Santa Clara River has been dumping sediment just south of that, or just north of that beach for years. And NRG fully believes in climate change, and in fact, as a sustainability professional, I personally feel like the single biggest issue that we need to deal with as a company and as a community, and ensure that we are planning for that, and we are. And in that planning, our coastal hydrologists and our coastal engineers have said that this site is protected and it does not pose a reliability risk.
Thank you. Our next question, let's see, is directed towards Sika. What do you think NRG could do to be good neighbors in your eyes with the Mandalay site?
Well, I'm not sure what the limits are that these folks can operate in. I'm perfectly very fond of them at this point, but because they've been very helpful and supplied us with all the data we asked for. But I think what the solution is going to require, and it probably requires all hands on deck for this, is that we go to the Public Utilities Commission, or the body that's handing down this requirement for this power plant. It's not NRG, it's the system. And say to them, look at the citizens of Oxnard and the surrounding community, the citizens of Ventura County, really feel that, yes, you need power, but we're willing to pay more. We're willing to shove the burden of siting this plant somewhere else. We've just been saying get it across Harbor Boulevard. Just get it off the beach, because it really is at the intersection of everything that we want to do with our lives when we're not working. And of course that means more, let's say that doesn't mean more cost. Well, that's a tough, I can imagine that NRG on its own can't walk in with that flag. There's going to be several entities that have to lead that initiative.
Any rebuttal or comments?
I do have actually a comment on whether or not NRG would be willing to move it and the additional cost. And so the reality is, yes, NRG is a for-profit business. Okay, okay. If there was any question on that, that was silly, right? But we are a for-profit business. But when we look at one of these projects, we look at a project and we say, okay, we've got a certain amount of revenue, and we try and build in benefits for the community along with that project. And if we were to move the site, which, by the way, right now our hands are tied because our contract is site-specific and technology-specific. So as I sit here today, the Puente project has to be located where it is with the technology that it is. But if that was removed and we were in a hypothetical land and we moved it across Harbor Boulevard and we paid additional costs for that, the likelihood that SCE would actually recoup those costs and actually raise your electricity rates wouldn't be up to them, it would be up to the Public Utilities Commission. And I think there's a lot of citizens in Oxnard that would have something to say about us increasing their rates. And I don't think that that is a prudent thing to do, just personally. And in addition to that, if we did that, now where does the money come for demolishing the older units? So great, you don't have a repowered site on the beach, but you have a retired site and code enforcement. Okay, first off, when a site is retired in place, like it has been in Morro Bay, which you should look up Morro Bay. It's a facility not owned by NRG, but that was decommissioned. And it stands on the beach today. And in fact, the power plant developer has tried to sell it several times, but they can't. So it just stands there and it's retired in place in safe condition. If you have a mountain of trash in your yard, okay, you're clearly violating something. But if you are keeping a facility in safe and reliable working order, this is the United States of America. Someone can't just come in and tell you that you have to do something with property that you own. So what would have to happen is that NRG would need to demolish those and have funds to do it. This is millions of dollars that is required to, these structures are large. I'm certainly not saying that. These are large structures that require millions and millions of dollars to demolish. And the Puente Power Project allows the certainty for us to ensure that the units do get demolished. We share the vision of the reclaimed coast. It's just we're business people and we see a practical plan to get there. And this is step one.
Just very quickly, I would just like people to consider the future, because we are being, I really feel that we're being held hostage to an old technology. Please stay tuned about big changes in the energy market. Community choice energy allows people to make different choices. I think that's coming to Oxnard. A lot of us are working on it. And it takes political will. And it takes the community to have a vision of something different. And I ask you to consider that before you consider a company's profit line.
Okay, just as a reminder, and appreciate your comment, but you know, our goal here is to provide information from each side and not necessarily a political or pointed side comment. And I'm not trying to say you were too far into that, but that was headed that direction. But appreciate the comments. I do have a follow-up question though that comes from that, and you mentioned as a business, you know, I in a private business, if I have to move my business, it's my cost to take it down and move it with me. So why would just moving across the street suddenly be the taxpayer's problem or the community's problem?
Well, I think more specifically, when you said the rates would go up for Oxnard, Oxnard isn't the consumer of this power generally. Oxnard isn't just the only consumer of the power there, and that plant's only operated between 8 and 30% of the time. 200 megawatts on a massive grid in this area isn't substantial. So how does that equate? You know, you kind of suggested that it equates to a large increase for the residents of Oxnard, and that's not clear to me.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to intend to suggest that, because first off, I don't know. I don't set electricity rates. Like I said, NRG is not a retail provider. We provide power to SCE. So what I really intended to say was that SCE has certain mandates that they have to procure power at certain prices to keep the electricity at the affordable rates that they are today. That's all I know. I don't work for Edison. I just know that. And I know that what the price that SCE is willing to pay me to provide a local reliability need. And so if I were to go to SCE today and say, hey, I want to move my project, they'd say, okay, sure, we're still only going to pay you what we said we were going to pay you. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, why isn't it our cost to pick it up and move it there? Well, it is our cost. We also, the Mandalay generating station doesn't just disappear. It would still be there. We would still have people to have to maintain the facility and keep it in safe and reliable working order. So we wouldn't just be kind of picking up and leaving. We still own the property.
Thank you. We have a water quality question here. With the new facility, new design, I'm sorry. The new design says that the great reduction in water flow through there. But water flow is also important to the water quality in this harbor as it comes through and moves the water around. So if the water is diminished that much, what, if anything, would happen to the water quality here in the harbor?
That's a super.
We turned the microphone off on each other. That's a super question because the answer is we really don't know. It's like all these other projections. At the time that Westport and Seabridge were built, there was a great deal of concern that this power plant continued to operate, and it was recited in the memorandums of understanding for both these communities between the county and the city that these power plants played a vital role. If you look at the picture, that slide that Mike had up of the harbor, it's a very, very long harbor. And pulling water out of the north end of it, which is what we're doing, is really seems pretty critical. Now, Mandalay has really not been operating very much all year, and I live in this labyrinth somewhere, and it doesn't look like the water quality has declined. So that's sort of a Chris Williamson kind of question. And I've talked to Rincon. I've poked around, and nobody seems to quite understand how the harbor cleanses itself and how important it is. But there was a time not long ago when everybody thought it was super important, that that canal keep operating. And obviously, the state of California thinks it's a benefit not to have the canal operating because they don't want the ocean water cooling these plants. And certainly, it's not Energy's focus. They're aware of the issue. The canal is owned by another entity, Texas-based utility, and it sort of got lost after Edison started splitting up the pieces. So I don't. My personal inclination, if I owned it all, I would say let's keep that water going through there somehow because it's got to be a benefit to the harbor. But I don't know the answer. I'd love to have it studied.
In one brief sentence, Warner, thank you for clarifying that. The canal is not owned by NRG. In case there were any questions about that. NRG does not own the canal.
Good, thank you.
And water cannot be pumped for energy purposes after 2020.
Okay. The next question here is to Carmen Ramirez. Does NRG pay taxes to the city now, and or what are there any other benefits that are provided to the because of the Mandalay site to the city of Oxnard?
I actually don't think there's taxes per se. There's probably some utility charges, water, etc. I'm not on top of that. I know they do pay property tax, but a lot of it goes to other counties as well. May go to Ventura County. And some share, of course, would come to the city, but I couldn't really specify. I don't know. Dr. Williamson, do you know that answer?
Yeah, I can talk through what the new project will provide. So to be clear, I am a project director, so I focus primarily on the Puente Power Project, and I can say that the new project will provide an additional $2.8 million in property tax. We'll also provide sales tax. And I hate to always say this, but I would point people to the Energy Commission's process in their AFC, because we do an entire analysis where we show the breakout of all of the benefits of the project. The $1.8 million in payroll taxes that we pay, or the payroll that we pay our employees. People talk about 17 employees, but that's $2 million in revenue for people that live in Oxnard that then spend that money in Oxnard that go to cafes. So all of that and the way it kind of flows through and trickles to all of both Oxnard, the city specifically, and Ventura County is detailed in that application.
Just a quick follow-up, any power plant built here will provide many of those same benefits you just heard, and not every employee or now or the 17 potential future employees live in the city of Oxnard.
Thank you. NRG, let's see. We talked about the smokestacks and the structure itself, and in the past we've talked about the ugliness of the plant, for lack of better terms. What commitments does NRG have or is making to reduce or eliminate the impact, the visual impact of that site?
So part of our permitting process is to do a full analysis. The picture that I showed you from the nearest public access on the beach is part of our required permitting process, because we're required to fully evaluate the full visual imprint of the new facility. And so in that, there are certain specific guidelines that say things like, it needs to blend in with the original, the landscape. So we talk through color and all of these different things. Now, what commitments are we making? Our first and largest, I think, is that within the project, if we commit now and early, we can use some of the project revenue funds to decommission and completely demolish units 1 and 2 at Mandalay. And the original proposal that we put back in front of the city in July of 2014 also included a commitment to retire and demolish the Ormond Beach facility. So we wouldn't have what Morro Bay has, where we have retired facilities that are just standing there and kind of being in caretaker status. We want to use the funds to demolish those facilities. And now I realize there may be a question about whether or not you can force us to do that in the future. But what I would say to that is it really prudent to say we're going to rely on having to fight to have someone take it down? Or should we be looking at ensuring that that can happen now, today, through a community benefits agreement?
Just to clarify one thing, as you stand at that door right there, looking out of this building, the units 1 and 2 are at 10 o'clock. You can see them in the stack right there. They are the 2 largest units at the station.
Yep, thank you. This one's directed to Werner. You have a video that's online on the SECA website, and in it you reference that the Mandalay site as an industrial dump. You care to elaborate on that? And then tied in with that, just as kind of it's a secondary question, but you mentioned here, and we've heard you talk about before, a trail project, and that seems like a very aggressive way to go. But what do you think that would take to make it possible? So it's kind of a lengthy question, I apologize, but I think they're tied together.
I apologize for calling it an industrial dump. My blood sugar was low, and after I had a brownie, I thought it was just an industrial site. You know, I actually lived, I was actually alive when this plant was built, and those were different times. And I think, first of all, NRG didn't build this plant, and there were, you know, I've seen the steel mills on the shores of Lake Erie. I mean, there was a time in this country when you built industrial infrastructure and you didn't really care what was going on. If you had some waste, you just dumped it behind the building. You didn't care about how it looked, whether it was landscape. And this is sort of this kind of area, but I don't hang that on Don or Tony. And the second part of the question is the trail project is really a vision, but it's exactly what this kind of process can engender, especially when we have the county, when we have the city, when we have all the various stakeholders that say, well, geez, you know, maybe we could solve it this way, and if we solve it this way, it would make room for letting some of these recreational facilities go forward, because it's all sort of there, and unfortunately, and again, not NRG's fault, they're right in the middle. They're blocking all this vision. They're standing in the way of the vision. So we've got 2 good reasons. They're standing in the way of a great recreational, ecological kind of vision, and the other is it doesn't make that much sense to have a facility on the beach to begin with.
Can I just do a quick follow-up?
Absolutely.
And these 2 lovely people next to me are not, again, the authors of this, but I will just say, NRG, the company, bought this site knowing what the rules were. And if you know the history of Oxnard, you know that lately we don't go down quietly. So I don't think it's good to, paint this company as a victim here of Oxnard. They made a business decision to buy a plant that was going to be decommissioned, and they knew it. The rules came out before they made the purchase.
So I would like to just say something to that. So yes, absolutely, we purchase all of our properties after doing due diligence. We follow all legislation and understand what it could or could mean. But I think it's been mischaracterized several times. The once-through cooling policy means that you have to reduce your flow of ocean water by 95%. It does not mean that you have to tear down your facility or that you have to stop operating. So that is what we went and purchased this facility with the understanding of. And every asset is you look at every power generating asset and say, what is the likelihood that you will be able to continue getting revenue in the future versus the cost to operate it? So yeah, we knew that that was a potential cost of operation, but I would say that no one in the independent power producing facilities considers the cost of demolishing facilities as part of an asset acquisition. Additionally, the contract that we have with Edison is a resource adequacy contract. So they don't actually pay us for the power we generate. They pay us to be there when we're needed. And so to that point, it's very important that we are sure that we're going to be reliable now and into the future for the entire contract term. So you can imagine we've done a lot of due diligence on ensuring that the site's reliable.
I'd like to just add one quick thing.
Real quick.
We have, the city of Oxnard has hired experts to discuss these issues of reliability, placement, sea level rise. And one of the things that is, it is true there are sand dunes there, but our experts have learned that it very much depends on dredging at the Ventura Harbor. And Dr. Williamson could follow up if you want to ask him questions later. And we know what happened with Port Hueneme with the lack of dredging, which was hung up in Congress. So please keep that in mind as well.
Panel, that's great. We have a question, and that's could we possibly schedule a follow-up meeting between this group with SECA to follow up with additional information that we could then publish as well? Yeah, okay, great. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gone well past 30 minutes of our time. I think there have been a lot of excellent questions. I know you have more questions. I know we have different opinions out there. I want to thank all of you for your time. This group will stay around for a few minutes, but before we actually do an official finish here, our panel is finished. I would like to bring Mike Mercadani back up, and he's going to wrap up for the day. And again, thank you for your attendance.
Okay, you can hear me now. Yeah. Well, I wanted to first thank all of the members of SECA. As chairman of SECA, we have a very active group of dedicated people in the community that put a lot of hours into a lot of these projects, and they're out here, but wanted to thank them immensely for their time and effort and all the research that they've done. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to learn about this. If you have any additional questions that didn't come up or weren't written on the cards, you can send them to our email address, which is info@ciharbor.org, and we'll put those into the list. We'll compile the list of questions. I will forward the questions once we compile them to both NRG, Carmen Ramirez, Werner. We'll then go through trying to get answers, and then we'll post that on the website so you can find it. The website is ciharbor.org. One of the things, if you take the time, is if you can suggest to us ways that we might make these forums more effective or productive, you can send that to that info@ciharbor.org. We'd love to hear from you. Please let us know, what we can do better. So thank you for your time.